everybody. Welcome to the week 4 episode of the walkthrough with me, Jamie Hoyle. I've got Daniel Harms from the Draft Network here with me. He covers the Chiefs, and we are going to break down the Chargers and Chiefs week 4 matchup. So, Daniel, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this one, as I do 2 times a year, every single year.
They're usually pretty compelling games, at least until the fourth quarter when the Chiefs usually pull away.
At the end of the day, man, I like watching them have fun, and I think that these games, they typically test both teams pretty well. When you know an opponent as well as they do, regardless of who the coach is, the quarterback, there's always just something extra to it, and I love that.
Absolutely. So, let me ask you, big change for the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh at the helm. What's the feeling in Kansas City and in Chiefs land about the Chargers hiring Jim Harbaugh and what that means for the division, for the Chargers, and for the Chiefs moving forward?
So I have a lot of unique information about this because I'm from Michigan. I root for everything Michigan except for the Chiefs. My dad was born and raised in Iowa, and when he found football, he got to choose because Iowa doesn't have a team, so he chose the Chiefs. So being brought up in Michigan, my dad was very set on us being Chiefs fans and not Lions fans, even though at that time it wasn't exactly a ton of difference between winning and losing. But I'm an avid Michigan fan, and I've watched Jim Harbaugh over his entire career at Michigan, and seen now that he's back in the NFL. I think that there's a little bit of uneasiness for a lot of fans because they see the success that he has everywhere, and because of the first couple of games, right? There was the immediate buy-in. There's always that immediate buy-in with Jim Harbaugh. He just has a way with players, and that's easy to see, especially with his relationship with the quarterbacks. It's always been something you see everywhere he goes. He gets and establishes a relationship with the quarterback. So I think everyone is a little bit kind of hesitant to say, well, regardless of what happens with the roster and everything, there's always just this aura around Jim Harbaugh, and he brings it with him wherever he goes. So that a lot of them aren't very, I guess, adamant to just say, well, now that the roster's kind of going through an overturn, that these games are going to be easy for at least a little while, because there's that wild card now, and Jim Harbaugh kind of creates that with what he brings to the table.
Okay. Um, let's assume Chargers fans aren't watching the Chiefs that closely. What's going well for the Chiefs through the first 3 games? What isn't going well? What's kind of concerning you?
Yeah, this is it's an interesting dynamic for the Chiefs. It does feel a little bit like their offense outside of the Baltimore game, and at times against the Falcons. Like, Patrick Mahomes has thrown essentially 5 interceptions this year. Like, he had one called back because of a penalty, but for on record interceptions, those, when I'm watching him play, it's more mechanics. Like, he seems like he's not trying to set his feet as much, and he throws it off balance, or he doesn't get his arm all the way through. He leaves some of these like hanging. The one in the end zone to Noah Gray last week against the Falcons, he just didn't get it high enough. He just kind of left it up there, and it fell into, once again, Justin Simmons' hands. Like, so I think that he's trying to get through something. And again, I don't really know. He's addressed that he's not playing his best football. Whatever is going on, I do think mentally he'll be more engaged going forward. But the defense is playing very well. I know that the Baltimore Ravens stormed back in that football game. And when you look at it, for most of it, the defense was shutting out the Ravens, and then they got tired. They had like 84 plays in that game. And when you have that many had that many snaps, especially for a guy like Nick Bolton, for example, who got picked on a little bit in that football game. He was coming off of an injury. He didn't play in the preseason, and then he has to come in and play 100% of the snaps when you're playing 84 defensive snaps. I mean, you're trying to run down the field. Like, okay, we could take a little bit of that with context, but I think that they've been very good at game planning their defense. Really all three weeks, they've done a really good job. And then you have just little spots where miscommunication here, maybe not paying enough attention to some tight ends against the Bengals, which really hurt them, giving them a lot of space, yards after contact, or yards after the catch, and things like that. But the defense all around, coming off a very strong performance against a good schemed run game in Atlanta, who really tried to get that outside zone going, and they just couldn't do it. I think the Chiefs did a really good job of stopping them there. But offensively, they are working through some kinks with timing, a little bit of things you would hope to get out in the wash in preseason. They are still trying to figure that out. not having Hollywood Brown, I think, has done a little bit of a number on what they planned on having, trying to incorporate, rookie Xavier Worthy a little bit more. Now they have a new left tackle with Wanya Morris taking over for Kingsley Suamataia. There's a lot of overturn in their offense, so I think they're just working through some of the kinks there on that side.
So I noticed, just from a statistical standpoint, it looks like Travis Kelce is having a hard time getting the football, or they're having a hard time getting the football
Mm-hmm.
to him. He has 8 catches through the first 3 games. Is there something that defenses are doing to take him away? Do you think that's part of the offensive struggles? Is Patrick learning to lean on somebody else other than Kelce early in the season?
Well, I think we've seen that they've gone directly to Rashee Rice in these scenarios. He's gotten a ton of yards, gotten a ton of targets, coming off his career high in yards and targets against the Falcons. So they are trying to supplement maybe the first read stuff, because teams really, they're shading safeties. They're bringing, actually, really, the Falcons did a good job of mixing it up, whether it was a double team, whether it was manned up with Jesse Bates or Justin Simmons. They did a good job of mixing up how they were addressing Travis Kelce. And then early on in the routes, I think that he's still getting his body acclimated to the season. The Chiefs have played a ton of football over the course of the last 5-6 years, and it's not easier as you get older to get right back into it on the regular season and just start going. So I think he's a little frustrated. They're also having a timing issue. There's been a couple of times actually already where Patrick is trying to throw the ball to him over the middle of the field, and for whatever reason, he's either in the wrong spot, or Patrick expects him to break a different way, and it's gone right to a defender, right to a place where a defender can come and get in front of Travis. So there's a little bit of a timing problem. I think defenses have generally done a very good job of paying more attention to him, and I think this really started against the after the week 1 game. The first game against the Chargers last year, where he just ran all over, just was everywhere doing everything, and teams finally just said enough. We're done letting this guy in the middle of the field, and he started to have a little bit more trouble throughout the regular season. Regular season, in the postseason was a little bit different, and that's what we're seeing right now. So timing, I think he's still not fully body wise ready to have the regular season get going. He still looks a little bit slow in and out of his breaks at times. So I think as they continue to go along in the season, they'll only get better. And I think that Patrick's done a good job of addressing that in his conversations with media, and trying to just kind of dispel some of what people think is animosity there, which I think we all know is a little bit crazy.
So do you think it's Kelce just taking time to get into football shape, or do you think he's maybe losing a bit of a step and slowing down a little bit, and some of those long seasons are finally catching up to him?
It's hard to really tell, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think he's slower than he was last year. I think that there's a little hesitancy with where he's expecting to be. I think defenses are paying a little more attention to him in the middle of the field. So he's got eyes maybe closer than he normally would, and he's trying to break in a different way than Patrick is seeing. So you have some shifts after post snap. Patrick is seeing that and trying to play off of it. Travis maybe doesn't necessarily see exactly what Patrick sees, because usually they're on the same page, and they always talk about how they can read each other's mind. And it feels like right now they're both having trouble getting on that same page. And in the process, Rashee Rice has been the guy that has been on the same page, and they've been able to get going there. So I think they're trying to hope that maybe going to Rashee Rice, maybe defenses will start to attack that way a little bit more, and they'll be able to get Travis the ball a little bit easier than they have been.
With Isaiah Pacheco out, how has Carson Steele been doing? What does he offer that maybe Pacheco doesn't? And maybe what is he missing that Pacheco had?
Man, it's tough. As you guys know, injuries are no fun, and it's when you have an Isaiah Pacheco, he's like this spark plug to your entire offense. He makes them go at times, and when you're in a lull offensively, he can give you a run that energizes everybody. Not that Carson Steele can't do that, but it's a little different when you've got the speed that Isaiah Pacheco does, and if he gets into one of those seams, he can take it for a much bigger chunk than Carson Steele has. He still plays with the same ferocity and trying to lower his shoulder and get as many yards as he can, breaking tackles. But I think you can see a distinct difference in the way that he's being used. They don't necessarily want him getting outside the tackles. And I don't know if that's like a bad thing for him. He does a good job getting downhill. I also think he's a much more gifted athlete laterally than Isaiah Pacheco is. I think he's better at jump cutting. I think he's got a slight better vision, to be very honest with you, but they're very adamant in you're going to go downhill and we're going to open up some holes in there and stay between the tackles, at least for right now. Maybe that's because playbook and he's a rookie and they're trying to limit that a little bit for him so he's not overwhelmed in his first rookie start. Maybe he'll get more opened up as the season goes along and he's playing more, he's more confident. But I think the biggest thing is the energy that Isaiah Pacheco plays with. It's just the way that he runs through people. He doesn't, and he hits the ground. Like, he runs through the ground. We see it. He puts his head down at times. He just pumps through, and it feels like he's trying to really hurt the ground. And that's something that everyone on the offense really feels and gets energy from. So when you take that away from the offense, you're trying to find different ways to maybe incorporate that. And right now, especially with Travis Kelce, who is a lot like a spark plug sometimes when he gets going, he gets really energetic. I don't know if they have a lot of that right now. So I think that's the biggest thing that they're missing. But I do think, you watched Carson Steele last week. I think he did a pretty good job. I'll be honest. Like, I think he did it fine. And now they're going to bring Kareem Hunt into the fold this week to get him a few touches off the practice squad. So it looks like right now Carson Steele is still going to be the number one back on first down. You'll see a little bit of Samaje Perine, but all in all, I think vision and the lateral agility is better than people expect, and a little bit better than Isaiah Pacheco, but he just doesn't have that speed that you're really looking for.
I know the Chiefs' offensive line is really built from the inside out, and they're having some issues with the tackles right now. So, what do you think they're going to do to help the tackle combination with Mack and Bosa and Dupree and Tuipulotu this week? What kind of things can they do schematically to help them?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for him because we know that Patrick Mahomes, I mean, it's been a big talking point at times over the past couple of years where it was so big a talking point that people are like, Patrick is getting too far in the backfield. Like, he's hurting the tackles. Like, that was a big mainstay for the getting it, especially with, Joey Bosa, who has been very, very good in his career, especially against the Chiefs. So I think what they did against the Falcons really are what's going to be the main takeaway here. When I'm watching that game and thinking about what the Chiefs stylistically do, a lot of times they'll just take a wide receiver or a tight end, whether it's attached or just slightly in that reduced split next to the offensive line, to give a little bit of time and space to your tackle. It's not necessarily a chip. It's more of just trying to get in the way. Last week against the Falcons, we saw actual chips. We saw real live tight end actually looking to push. Carson Steele gave a couple really good actual chips, even at times when they have the running back go onto that side to help out the left tackle. He doesn't really make a lot of contact. So I think that they did a much better, more deliberate job of actually helping the tackle, specifically your left tackle, who's now Wanya Morris, get in a little bit more comfort. They'll move the pocket. They'll do some end arounds. I think you'll see a bit more jet sweeps this week, trying to get the defensive ends in Los Angeles to think a little bit more. At the end of the day, the one thing that you can do to slow down to defensive ends that is not physically hitting them with chips is making them think, where is the motion going? Is it going over there? Is the ball going over there? Is it play action? There's maybe unblocked. Why are they unblocking me? Trying to do everything you can to get in their heads. And if you go back to 2022, when the Chiefs played the San Francisco 49ers, Nick Bosa was in hell. He had running backs coming out of him. He had multiple different movements, motions, jet sweeps. He was thinking all the time. I think Andy Reid did a great job in that scenario, just isolating him and attacking him. Now, you have two different problems in LA with Mack and Bosa, who I think are playing very good football this year. Hopefully, they're fully healthy, because I don't like to see teams when they're injured as much. I want to see them at their full strength. So one, you're going to play them again. You have a better idea of how they're going to play. But at the end of the day, I think that that's how everyone wants to play and beat an opposing team. So I think they're going to do a good job. And for the most part, I really think actively helping with chips and motions and jet sweeps, things like that, just to make them think a little bit more, is the name of the game for this game.
What's going well for the defense right now? I know they're playing really well and they're slowing offenses down and stopping them. What are they doing at a high level right now?
Game planning. Steve Spagnuolo really is doing a good job of taking away something that you want to do. Like last 2 weeks, it was these against the Falcons, stop the outside run, and they really did a nice job of limiting those explosive cutbacks from Bijan Robinson. It was get to the edge, force him back, and then rally to the football. They took that away and forced the Falcons to have to do something a little bit different. And I think if it weren't for a few miscommunications in the back end that allowed the Drake London touchdown, and then the, let's just say, generous roughing the passer flag that was applied to Chris Jones when he kind of set Kirk Cousins down on the ground, you probably don't have the score that it was. So I think he's done a fantastic job of trying to make the offense play left-handed. And going back to the Bengals, I mean, he just said, "Hey, Trent McDuffie, take away Jamar Chase," and he basically did, and that was something that we really did see. I hope I could ask you something a little bit about the defensive side of the football for the
Yeah,
Chargers, because
absolutely.
I think what we're seeing right now is they come out, they play really hard football, right? They come out and they really play hard. I think they're playing better, at least above what people expected from them. But what do you think is going to be the biggest struggle getting past that early season hump, right? Where you're putting stuff, new stuff on tape, and you're trying different things out. You have a new defense coordinator in Jesse Minter. Like, what do you think is going to be the next stage of getting through the season that isn't just, okay, we're trying new things out and we got some injuries to deal with, but as the season gets along, what do you think is going to be the best part about this defense?
Well, I think the best part about the defense is Minter's ability to figure out ways to apply pressure. He blitzes a lot on second and third and long. He's not just looking for four-man pressures. You see a lot of slot blitzes. They're bringing Derwin. They're bringing the linebackers. They're really looking to put heat on the quarterback, and they bring them from all angles through all gaps.
Mhm.
So I think that's something that's going to ramp up. I think something they need to do to get over the next hump at midseason is going to be um, really to find a way to apply to get their interior linemen to collapse the pocket. Um, Last week in particular, there were a lot of clean pockets for Justin Fields. He had time to sit back and scan the field and make reads and make throws. And especially with Mahomes, I feel like that edge pressure isn't really what gets to him. It's pushing that pocket back in his lap into his face, making it tougher for him to step up, kind of trapping him in the pocket and being disciplined. And they need more interior pressure from their defensive linemen. I think getting to your Tart on the field will help with that. Hopefully, they can run some stunts and games up front to create some pressure. But they really need to collapse that pocket from the inside.
Have they moved around anybody into the interior? Like if you have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and Tula Pelotu, has Jesse Minter experimented with maybe playing one of them inside at all this season?
Yes, yes, he's done a little bit of that. Every once in a while, you'll see Bosa and Mac on the same side. Sometimes you'll see Tuli Pelotu and Mac on the same side, and they'll run little twists and stunts up front to try to get one of them free. Usually, they'll rely on the offensive line keying on either Bosa or Mac to get Tuli Pelotu free inside. But yeah, they'll definitely do that. And they're running some speed packages. They like to get Morgan Fox on the field in passing situations. You'll see a lot of Bosa, Mack, and either Tuli Pelotu or Dupree with Fox in obvious passing situations, trying to get that kind of NASCAR package.
Mhm.
And they'll do overload blitzes and things like that. So yeah, you'll see some of that.
That's a sign of a smart defensive coordinator. Find ways to create one-on-ones. If you don't have, Joey Bosa maybe at his prime, Khalil Mack at his prime, find ways to get them in good advantageous pass rush situations. Another thing about the defense, really quickly, I see that the Chargers are second in rushing defense success rate this year on early downs. And if you look at the past couple of years, they've been like 24th, 14th, 31st. This is the highest they've been since 2020. That was the COVID year. So what are they doing up front against the run that's been so successful, do you think?
So one big thing is they added Puna Ford, who's their starting nose tackle, basically. And he is not only holding up against double teams, but he is penetrating and disrupting in the interior, which a lot of times is forcing running backs to stop their feet and cut back. And what they're doing this year that they haven't done in the past is they're rallying to the football. Their linebackers are getting better reads, they're keying better, and they're getting downhill. So when Tart or Bosa or somebody penetrates, there's usually 2 or 3 guys right behind them to make the tackle, and they're not missing tackles. So it's a much more. I think they've simplified the reads and the keys for
Mhm.
the linebackers in particular. The corners are tackling better. The safeties are tackling better. They're playing really team defense where all 3 levels are playing together in unison, and they're rallying to the football and they're getting guys on the ground early.
That is something we haven't really seen from the Chargers defense in the last couple of years, where the tackling has been like over the past, I would say not just the Chargers, but in the entire NFL, I would say tackling has gotten a little lax in some places. And I think that what Jim Harbaugh with Jesse Minter bring is that mentality, right? They brought it at Michigan and they're bringing it here now is like, if you're going to play defense, you're going to have to go tackle. And I love that. I think bringing in a guy like Christian Fulton has helped that as well. And I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like he's playing a lot better than he ever played in Tennessee. And I know he was dealing with an injury. I don't know if you have an update on that because I don't know if he's good to go or not. But he's been playing well.
Yeah, I don't have an update on the injury, but he has been playing extremely well. He was the 4th or 5th highest rated corner for the first 2 weeks of the
Mhm.
season. He played another good game last year, or last week, I should say, against the Steelers. He's not really giving up much. I mean, I think the
Yeah.
only catch I remember him giving up last week was on a cover 2 hole shot between the corner and the safety, where he just let his guy go and Fields made a good throw. But he's not really giving much up. He's getting his hands on a lot of footballs, breaking up passes, and again, providing really, really good run support. It just seems like the guys are buying in. They've simplified things, and they're just saying, "Go out and play," and they're not as encumbered by rules and things as they were with Staley, where Staley wanted a rule for everything. If there was a
Yeah.
particular motion, if something happened, there was a rule, there was a call, there was something that they had to think about. And now it's just like see ball, tackle ball, and they've been much more effective.
Yeah, you can definitely feel it. We do have to get to the offensive side of the football here because there's a lot of injuries over
I don't
there
want
on
to.
the Chargers offense. Um, I I feel bad. I don't. I'm gonna ask you how you feel because from an outside perspective, it feels like there's something in the water, not just in San Diego, but it followed them to LA. Do you feel like the Chargers are a little cursed when it comes to injuries because like this seems to happen every single year?
It's every year, and this year was supposed to be different because they hired Ben Herbert from Michigan, and all the talk was he's going to make them unbreakable.
Yeah.
But he did say he was going to break them down before they were unbreakable, and it seems like they're breaking down pretty quickly. So, yeah, it's painful. It's really hard to watch, especially you finally feel like you've got an offensive line that's playing really well,
Mhm.
particularly at the tackles. Those guys are driving the running game. They're pass blocking really well. I mean, Alt was fantastic before he got hurt last week.
Mhm.
And now they're having to shuffle the whole offensive line. Last week Slater goes out. They move Pipkins from right guard to left tackle. Alt goes out. The next man up at tackle is Foster Sarrell, and now they've got Jamari Salyer at right guard. It's just like it's one thing after another, and you add Herbert's bad ankle on top of that,
Mhm.
and now it's like, how do you put the guy on the field with a Swiss cheese offensive line? You're almost wondering if it's better just to hold him out for this week, give him the
Mhm.
bye week, and see if he can come back the following week. Because man, putting him back there with the interior of the Chargers offensive line was already struggling, and now you start shuffling the starting pieces around and putting guys like Salyer on the field, who's been decent in fill in duty, but I mean, Herbert's less mobile. He's got the bad
Mhm.
ankle, and they've already struggled in the interior offensive line. That whole scenario just it scares the crap out of me.
I don't blame you. Trust me. I mean, I'm not going to try to like say that I understand necessarily. Patrick Mahomes dealt with that 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl. Like every time he goes out there, it feels like why are you going out there? You're going to hurt yourself. But at the end of the day, he was able to play through it. So let's assume that Justin Herbert plays, right? He plays through it and like he did last week and he ended up aggravating it, right? Let's assume he plays. What can the Chargers do with this Swiss cheese offensive line to make it a little bit easier on Herbert so he's not having to, you know, bring this team back if the Chiefs get up a couple of touchdowns early?
Um, Well, obviously, running the ball would help a whole hell of a lot. That's what has carried them through their first 2 wins. It didn't go so well on the ground last
Mhm.
week. And I think the Chiefs are going to come in and try to take the running game
Yeah.
away. The Chargers are very gap duo and power heavy. They want to run downhill, get one cut and go. And I think some first down play action would help. The passing game was atrocious the first 2 weeks of the season, but they also didn't really need it. They
That's
used
true.
it when they really needed it to make a play here or there, but they weren't looking to produce points out of the passing game for the most part the first 2 weeks. Last week it was different. In the first half, Herbert was I think he had 125 or 130 yards in the first half. They were attacking the intermediate part of the field. They were running play action early, getting Quentin Johnston and Lad McConkey on a lot of in breaking routes, slants, posts, deep digs, things like that, getting them the opportunity to catch the ball and run with it between the corners and the safeties in the middle of the field. And they had some success with that. Um, Honestly, I mean, they narrowly missed 2 touchdown passes in the first half that would have completely changed that game. So I think I think if he's on the field, you should see some play action early, hopefully on some first down play action to take advantage of the expectation of the run. They need to get the ball out of his hands a little bit faster with this offensive line. I would say some bubble screens, some smoke screens. Quentin Johnston was really good in college with catching those short
Mhm.
passes and making people miss. That is not a part of his game they've really taken advantage of. I feel like that's something Lad McConkey can also be really good at. Maybe some tight end screens with Hayden Hurst, and they really haven't used too many running back screens. So I think that's a good way to slow down the pass rush is set up those screens, get the ball in Dobbins' hands in space, see if he can make somebody miss for a big gain. But manufacture a rhythm early with play action, short passes, quick passes, use that as an extension of the running game, and maybe use the passing game to open up the running game.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And just really quickly, because I like both of these guys. I love J.K. Dobbins coming out, and obviously his career didn't go the way that it had planned in Baltimore, but now he's in L.A. and it feels like he's been rejuvenated. Quentin Johnston, did not have the best rookie season. What are you seeing specifically from these two guys that they've been able to kind of have this resurgence now in this year with the Chargers?
Well, with Dobbins, like I said, they're very gap, power, and duo
Yeah.
heavy. So they're getting double teams up front and they're letting him read the line and make cuts. Dobbins' vision is unbelievable.
Mhm.
He rarely ever misses a hole. You can see early in the season he already trusts Joe Alt. So a lot of times he's looking to cut the ball back to the right behind Alt once he caves in the backside of the play. So his wiggle and um, vision have been huge, and then his burst has been really big to create big plays.
Yeah.
With Quentin Johnston, it just seems like he's starting. Things are slowing down for him. Last week, or last year, I should say, the game was really fast for him,
Mm.
and he just never really got comfortable or settled in. And this year, you can see him. He's kind of starting to understand spacing. He's understanding where the defense is. He's finding holes in the defense, and instead of just continuing to run through those holes, he's settling down and giving Herbert a big target. Those are all really big things, and he's catching the football, which he
Yeah.
didn't do last year. So that's a pretty big difference.
That's awesome. It's good to hear, and I think that this is going to be a fun game. I'll spare you the Taylor Heineke talk for for now.
I mean, if he does have to play, to be honest, he came in and ripped a really good throw to Lad McConkey on his first throw last week, where he threw the ball before Lad was out of his break on a flag route and just threaded it right over the defense and dropped it into his hands. I think there are throws that he can make from a physical standpoint that Easton Stick can't make.
Yeah.
And if they can keep him upright and keep him clean in the pocket, I think he's going to see the field better. And I think there are throws he will make that can at least keep the ball moving, even if he isn't going to go out and throw for 300 or 400 yards. He can be efficient, move the sticks, and help them allow them to continue running the ball the way they want to.
Yeah, that you can't ever rule out the wily veteran. I think, we all watched him against Tom Brady in that playoff game where he nearly won. Like, there's just something about Taylor Heineke. While he doesn't have the physical tools like you want from a quarterback, he just has the will. And I think that that is very dangerous on a team that buys in specifically. So, regardless of who plays quarterback, I do think it's going to be an interesting dynamic because we know Justin Herbert is incredible. Justin Herbert's incredible. I think even with a high ankle sprain, he's not someone to ever take lightly. So regardless, it's going to be fun to watch. I'm definitely, like I said, I'm definitely excited to see what this game looks like. And I'll personally will never take the Chargers lightly, regardless of the injuries that are happening there, because you never really know.
Yeah, it should be. Hopefully, it's a fun game. Hopefully, Herbert is somewhat healthy if they decide to put him out there. I really hope they protect him. That offensive line
Mhm.
scares the crap out of me, like I said right now. If Slater and Alt can't go, you're basically going with a three-man line in a lot of ways. So it's a little scary. So we were talking before we came on, and I had asked you how you got kind of started with the Draft Network and what your background was. And we have our own Patreon and our own Discord, and we have a lot
Mhm.
of fans who watch film, and I think everybody who watches football kind of you know loosely considers himself a scout on some levels. They all watch film and think that we all think we know what we're talking about, right? So talk to us a little about your background, how you got started, um, and how you got to where you are now with the Draft Network as a scout.
Yeah, so it's very roundabout. A lot of people is really the explosion of this. I think you could argue was around COVID time. Like everyone started to deep dive more into watching film and just trying to dissect the game a little bit more. But I was in the military. I got out around 2014, medically, medically retired. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, with my life. I started going to college a little bit here, and just it wasn't necessarily the way I wanted to go with my life. And um, so I decided one day, I picked up Twitter because I still hadn't had Twitter. This was like 2016, and I'm just like, I'm going to start following all the NFL teams and start like trying to keep up with what's going on. And since I'm a Chiefs fan, I got into a couple of online, like SB Nation places that Arrowhead Pride is for the Chiefs, and I started to read articles and I saw people breaking down film in these articles. So I tried to find, where can I find this film, right? Like how do I find it? So after that, I was able to locate it on, originally it was NFL.com and then they turned to NFL Plus and all that fun stuff. So I was able to find it. I started watching it. I tried to find as many resources as I possibly could. But from there, it grew. And that's when I started working with rgrfootball.com, which is where I'm still currently over there on the YouTube page over there doing my film breakdowns every single week. But with RGR football came a fan base that is rabid for the draft because as you guys all know, like the draft is now it's year round. It's not just after football season in the NFL is over. It's all year long. So we started to do our own draft guide, and I started watching prospects and trying to crumb together YouTube clips and highlights and everything that I possibly could to watch as many prospects as possible. And I made a few friends, in the draft industry. Actually, last year I was with Cover One covering the draft. I had a podcast there. I was able to go to the combine last year. I've been to the Senior Bowl a few times now, covering it and watching prospects and getting involved in that. And then this past off season, I was approached by the Draft Network, and one of my buddies that worked there was talking me up a lot. So it just kind of works out sometimes when you have all the resources that you possibly can get and you just keep working, and good things do eventually happen. Like it's been really cool to see all the different, just kind of look back on the different the path that I've taken to this point. So just the hardest part about it really is finding college film, right? Like that's the hardest
Absolutely.
part. The hardest part is like I need one more game of this sixth round possible guy that I've got, but he's at like Montana State. And you gotta find different pathways. So it's been an incredible journey, and those long nights of watching countless hours of whether it's LSU offensive line or trying to find a clip or a montage of highlights on YouTube because it's all you have, and just trying to learn as best you can. I really think that finding different resources to learn about the game has been the biggest advantage, and just trying to absorb as much as possible. So that's really my story for the most part.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. It's a lot of fun. I just talking football is it's one of those things that I really do feel like we've been here for like 35 minutes, and I don't feel it. Like I just it doesn't feel like time goes by when you're talking football. So anytime.
It's funny you say that because I have two partners on the podcast, and every like when the Chargers have a bad game and they lose, we'll come on before we record, and it's like, what the hell are we going to talk about? And then the next thing you know, we've talked for 75 minutes, and we're like, how did
Yeah,
we? It doesn't matter how bad, how good, or how bad the game is. It doesn't matter how miserable we are going in. We always find a solid hour to an hour and 15 minutes. It doesn't matter, and then it's like no time passed at all. It's
yeah.
crazy.
It's one of the I don't even know how you would describe it, but it's one of those crazy things that we all that's why we're here, right? That's why we're talking about football, because we love it so much. It's a passion, and that's why the people there are fans of the channels and the different shows that we both have. So, and it's a crazy experience. I'm not gonna lie, it's just crazy.
It is absolutely. So you want to tell everybody where they can find you and find your content?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys, I do videos on RGR football. If you're ever interested, I know that y'all are Chargers fans. Don't It's about learning. My film rooms are about learning. And yes, it's the Chiefs, but I try to break down the game as best as I can, depending on the different situations. So I do film rooms there every single Wednesday. We do live shows, which you're all not interested in. Uh, but I also have film rooms every single Monday for the Draft Network. I do prospect film breakdowns over with the premium side on TDN as well. I do 3 different prospect videos each week, and then I have multiple articles that go up at TDN as well. This coming week, I'll have my second mock draft. So first round mock draft, and it's gonna be a doozy. I tell you right now. The first one was tough because that was my very first like full round mock that I've ever done for the Draft Network. So I wanted to like actually put a lot of like thought and effort into it, and this one is going to be interesting. I can tell you that much. But all everything that I do also goes up on Twitter. I will always call it Twitter, and you can find me at In Harms Way 19.
All right. Well, I thought this was a lot of fun. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, I had a great time, and anytime you guys want to have me back on, I'm more than willing to talk Chargers, Chiefs, whatever you guys want.
We will definitely do that. We'll have you back on before they play at the end of the season.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And everybody remember, you can find me on Twitter at lightning_round. You can find us on YouTube. You can join the Patreon and the Discord. There's all kinds of good stuff going on in that community, that Chargers community. And keep an eye out for all of our content during the week. This show airs on Thursday, so obviously we'll have after hours on Sunday, right after the game. And then right into our weekly content, we'll have Craig on Tuesday with I Got Five on it. You'll have Garrett with Score More on Wednesday, and me with the walkthrough on Thursday. So thanks for joining us. I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.